Do you ever doubt yourself? Do you struggle to balance work, life, and relationships and emotions? Does a lack of balance or control over your thoughts and your inner peace cause you worry, stress, or even anxiety? Well, those we lead, especially young student athletes, are having these same struggles as well. And for them, they lack the experience, oftentimes the resilience, and even the skills to manage these thoughts of doubt and the emotions associated with doubt, stress, failure, and the absence of balance. Enter the mental mindset performance coach. Welcome back to the Play Beautiful podcast. My guest today is Silver Edwards. Silver is a mom, educator, competitive soccer coach, a former Division I soccer player herself, and a mental mindset performance coach. She helps student athletes develop confidence and then helps guide parents to empower their student athlete so that they develop resilience both on and off the field. Let's lean into this conversation with Silver and find out how we, as leaders, coaches, parents, and supporters of those we lead, especially our young student athletes, can help foster their confidence and pour into them so that they can develop inside the lines to win outside of them. Thanks for joining us. Welcome to the Play Beautiful podcast, where we encourage coaches to grow and to lean into the sacred work that we do and how our impact is lifelong. And I'm joined today by Silver Edwards, and I'm so thankful to have you on, Silver.
Yeah, I'm super excited to be here. So thank you so much for allowing me to be here, kind of allow and share a message I think we both have a passion for. So just to help coaches and athletes, parents, all of that. So I'm really excited to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about that message. So tell me a little bit about yourself first, and then that message. What is that message?
Yeah, so I'm in California. So I'm a native of California, born and raised in the Central Valley, in a small town, Bakersfield. But I'm a former D1 athlete, coaching, a competitive soccer coach, mom of three, and a mental performance coach as well. So kind of wear a couple hats in there, but I have a passion for all of them. And I think the message is just that our athletes today are overwhelmed a little bit, I feel, with the pressures of, being a student athlete, and they need tools. They need tools to navigate through, the pressures of being that student athlete, and the overthinking. And so, yeah, I think they just need tools to overcome a lot of the pressures and overwhelming that they have right now.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so you have a great scope of this. So I'd like to ask you if this is something you struggle with, because you can speak to that side of it, having been a very highly competitive soccer player, and admittingly having dealt with needing to focus on your mindset. So tell me a little bit about what that struggle looks like so that coaches can really get an introspective look at that.
Yeah, I would say I had a really successful youth career, very successful high school career, youth career, club wise. I mean, high school wise, player of the year for my area. So really successful. And then that translated for me to have the opportunity to play collegiate soccer at Loyola Marymount as a D1 athlete. And um, being in that competitive environment, right? I think you realize you're good, but everyone else is good really quick.
Mm-hmm.
And, sometimes when you come from, and especially in that environment, everyone was probably good on their team. And
Mm-hmm.
so was the number one player and all of those things. So when you go into that environment, all of a sudden you're kind of hit with like, whoa, like what you start questioning, you know, am I good enough to be here? Am I, do I really belong here? So I think for me, it was a real experience of my first time where I experienced the question. I questioned myself. I questioned if I belonged. I questioned if I was good enough. I questioned a lot of things. But I also felt a pressure of I didn't want to let my parents down. I didn't want to let all of my coaches who put so much work into me down, and so yeah, so it was a very, very interesting time my freshman year of my collegiate career. And so I was worrying about so many other things. And what I really realized well, it took my first year. So it wasn't until maybe spring of, after my first season, wasn't spring, where I realized the worrying was actually doing more damage to me. Worrying about what people thought, worrying about, what my coach thought, worrying about trying to please others. And I realized that that was actually crippling me rather than helping me thrive, So I think really understanding that, as coaches, we can see when athletes are hard on themselves. We can see when, the body language, all of those things. And we need to understand as coaches, like there needs to be more of a dialogue to help and more tools to help our athletes get through this. So doesn't mean they're broken, doesn't mean they can't do it, doesn't mean they, something's wrong with them or they need more reps. I think it's just like we have to have something in place to help them get through that, because those are actually hard moments that actually athletes need to help get through.
Yes. Yes. I love that you mentioned that they're moments, right? That
Mhm.
they're getting through. So what was maybe a moment for you that was a catalyst that made you realize you need to shift your mindset? Because you mentioned after your first year, you came back to your team, Division One, too, by the way.
Mhm.
Let's really drill down on that. Like that's the upper echelon, right? Of
Mhm.
performance and skill level and difficulty, rigor, all of those things. And you became the captain
Mhm.
of your team.
Yeah.
So, what was the catalyst, or was there a moment that was a catalyst for your shift in mindset that enabled you
Mhm.
to step into just, I guess, your best self
Mhm.
and be able to achieve more, even within the team as a captain?
Yeah, I would say the summer before my sophomore year, I was training, and I remember my brother also went to the same college. He was a senior when I was, yeah, it was a freshman. And so at the same college. So I remember training with my brother who had experience and who, really understood that, internal struggle. And so I remember we were training during that summer before my sophomore year. And he's like, kind of just kept drilling, like, hey, you just got to go play. Like, you just have to, like, not worry about what other people are thinking. And I think it was that moment that I kind of really understood, like, yeah, why am I playing for all these or why do I feel like I'm playing for other people? Or why do I feel like I have to, like, what do I have to prove? Like, I know my parents are going to love me. Like, I know my parents are going to be proud of me regardless. You know, it was just really up to me and what I was telling myself, the story that I was telling myself. For some reason, I was telling myself I wasn't good enough. I didn't belong. But I was the only one telling myself that. No one else around me was telling me it, So I think it was really an eye-opening just, that summer before I really had to change the story that I was telling myself. And I was telling myself the story for a really, really long time.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had to start searching for like the proof that I could do it, that I had to start really looking at the things that people were telling me, and really let go of these expectations of, you know, of, yeah, I had to just let go of these expectations and just play and be present and go back to why I loved this game. And I think that was really, really kind of that it was a process. I'm gonna say what happened overnight. I think that's really important. It is a process. And as long as you're consistent in that process of, of doing the mindset work and the mind reps and what it takes to believe in yourself and what it takes to, even when feelings come in of self-doubt, like being consistent in what you believe about yourself was probably that callous. And it was a process. It took that whole entire summer for me to come back that sophomore year and really, really make a statement of, okay, I've arrived.
Yeah, there's only room for one narrative, right?
Right.
There's only room for one narrative. Yeah. Would you say that it sounds like to me when I hear you speak about that summer you spent with your brother, it sounds like to me he was coaching you.
Oh, absolutely. My brother's a coach too. So
Oh, right on.
yeah, my brother's a coach. I'm a coach. My sister coached at once. So I think, my family is just a natural coach. And I think that was probably, the start of his career coaching, as well. And I think that was something too that, was definitely in the stars for him too. So definitely, my brother was probably, a definite influence.
Mm. I also heard you say something that really resonated with me, that you had to remind yourself of your real identity.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
How do you, since you work with your coach and then you work, individually and really intimately with players on their mindset and confidence, what role do you think that plays? Like really identifying who they are in their
Mm-hmm.
confidence.
I think sometimes athletes misinterpret feelings as identity, and they misinterpret being frustrated or being upset or being angry with identity. And I think it's really important to understand, like, athletes, you can have the feelings are real, and but we have to understand they're not facts of who we are. And so when you're in a game, when you're feeling like you're frustrated because you're down 1-0 or 2-0, that is where the real true identity of you comes out. Like, who do you actually believe who you are in those moments? How do you want to show up in those moments? And so I think that's what's really sometimes misinterpreted with athletes is we have these feelings and we think that's who we are. And I remember feeling so frustrated and so upset and doubting myself and all of these things and all of these feelings that popped up. And I remember almost having to argue back with myself,
Mm.
being like, no, 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 no. Why are we saying this? Why are we saying I'm not good enough? Why are we saying like no one else is saying it? And I think that's what a lot of athletes do is that once they realize like who they are and figure out like what do they love about themselves when they go through hard moments, what do they love about themselves when or what can they be proud of themselves even when they don't get the results that they get. Where's the proof that you've done hard things in the past?
Mm.
I think that's what's really, really important is that sometimes uncovering those and talking about those really reveals for an athlete their identity and not so much about the feeling. And so um, So yeah, I think once we uncover those things for an athlete, it's almost like this I like aha moment. Oh yeah, I have done hard things. And they realize actually I was proud of myself in those moments when I got through. It was hard, but I actually was proud of myself that I got through that. You
Hmm.
know, and so really understanding those moments and uncovering those moments for an athlete is such an aha moment. And and when I work with athletes too, it's not just one moment. We uncover several different times in their lives, whether it's been through injuries, whether it's been through navigating team, being dropped down to B team, going up to the A team, all of these things. So there, I mean, every athlete has been through hard things, and
Right.
it's uncovering those proof, what I call proof moments. Where's the
Mhm.
proof that you've done it before? And
Yeah,
let's focus on those things.
I love that. Um, my mantra at Play Beautiful is built inside the lines to win outside of them. And everything I hear you saying there is equipping them with skills
Mm-hmm.
that they won't just use on the field,
Oh, yeah.
but that they'll take with them right for a lifetime to
Mm-hmm.
continue to remind themselves that I have overcome.
Mm-hmm.
I can do hard things. And so that when they again step into a period of their life where they have to overcome something, maybe
Mm-hmm.
it's their own thoughts,
Mm-hmm.
can do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you think that this mindset shift of yours has equipped you in any other time of your life to be transformational for you?
Yeah. Gosh, been through quite a few as an adult, as a, student. I mean, going to grad school was hard. Going to grad school was hard. Um, just gosh, having, I think, just juggling full-time job and grad school, just knowing that, again, if you're consistent in things, if, you always try and put your best foot forward, your best may look different sometimes, and that's okay, you
Mhm.
know, but I think, how it translates on and off the field, I think you don't realize the things that you do on the field, like the grit, the hard work, the consistency, all of those things translate into other areas of your life. I went through a big custody battle, like the grit and the mindset work that had to do, with that. Like there's just so many areas that I think that, life happens. Life happens and you don't know what life is going to throw at you. Um, but but the things that you learned as an athlete and the things that the confidence and how you handled pressure, how you handled, you know, problem solved, all of those things, they're all life skills. And what you believe about yourself when those life moments happen is such a valuable tool that I think is like it. There's no words probably to describe it. Maybe I'm not describing it well, but it just.
I think you're doing a great, you're doing a great job. If anyone is listening, like as far as an athlete, if you're an athlete, you're listening to this, I really hope that you're receiving this and not just listening and passing. But what I'm hearing you say that is so powerful is that the things that you do on the field, even up here, will stay with you for a lifetime.
Hmm.
And that regardless of what you may go through, you can keep returning to that skill
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
and on that mindset. And maybe it's something, that you once we hang up our cleats, some of those things we just dismiss.
Hmm.
Um, but and you can speak to this as well as I that you once you find yourself in the middle of it,
Mm-hmm.
Immediately what comes to mind is the things that you have done on the field,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Absolutely.
So
Mm-hmm.
I think it's so important for the message that we're trying to give to coaches, as we're layering it here, is that this is part of the work,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
right? It's
Mm-hmm.
not just we're not just rolling a ball out and teaching drills,
Mm-hmm.
right? There's so much more to it. Um, so much more important things, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so for a lot of coaches, this might be easy to dismiss, though,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because they'll go, "Well, I don't know how to do that. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not a mental performance coach or a sports psychologist, or
Right.
I'm not here to be their counselor," right? And
Mm-hmm.
so, but let's break this down into pieces that they can receive, and that
Mm-hmm.
everyone, anybody listening, athlete, parent, coach, whomever, can receive and digest and really accept that their role is not just important, but that they are capable. So,
Mm-hmm.
what would you say are some of the core components of your work, of the mindset work that you do? If you could simplify
Mm-hmm.
it.
Yeah, I would say this. I think every coach, right? We have a passion to mentor. I think, we have a passion to mentor. We have a passion to, develop kids and all of those things. And we actually, I think we have a passion seeing our kids succeed. And when it comes to mental performance, what I would say this is you're already an influence of it. So why not be intentional with it?
Mhm.
And I think once you be intentional with it, you will realize how important, and I would say probably easier, your job will actually be. Because I know as a coach, I was overwhelmed, I think, by a lot of, you know, when I didn't really understand this mental performance side, I was overwhelmed because I was trying to cater to the feelings and having these off conversations on the side after the field or after the game, before the game, having phone calls in between practices, all of these things. And so just to check in and just to see how, my athletes were doing. And it was overwhelming. It was a lot of work. And and it can be draining. It can be draining as a coach. Like I know coaches, we do a lot of work, not just on the field, on the court, anything like that. We do so much work off the field, in between sessions, before sessions, on the weekends, in the wee hours. Like it is hard. And there's not enough, we don't get paid enough, I think, to do the actual real work, the hours that we put in. So my message would be is once you're intentional with it, it can literally change not only how you coach, how you manage your team, but how your athletes feel about themselves and feel about you. And
Mhm.
so I would say once you're intentional, then it can change from there. One of the things that I would say is be intentional. All of our athletes struggle with, I would say, three things: being present, how to train the skill of actually being present. A lot of athletes come to our games and have so many things going on, and a lot of athletes don't realize that they play their best when they're actually present and they're not worried about what happened in the past, what happened in the future, just in the moment. So if we can be intentional on how to get our athletes present and in the moment and worried about what's just right in front of them,
Mhm.
and not worry about the car ride that happened just before, and not worry about the car ride that's going to happen after the game, you know. So we can be intentional about being present. If we can be intentional about how we talk to our athletes about mistakes, I think that's the biggest thing. It's like, what language do we use, when we see a player make a mistake? Are we praising only results versus effort? Are we rewarding the response after a mistake versus, again, results? Are we creating a space to where we can talk about things that we did well or things that we need to work on. Are we creating a space where we can talk about pressure, being overwhelmed? um, and so I think once we're intentional in those things, I think then we can allow our athletes to kind of relax a little bit, and where it's actually now a little bit more understanding and, okay, my coach understands I have a lot of pressure, or, oh, my coach just praised me for, actually having a better response after a mistake, and so I think once we are intentional in those things, or even, we all have athletes that are not, our best athletes that maybe never start in a game or maybe don't get a lot of minutes, you know, be intentional about still, connecting with them, high-fiving them, praising them. Hey, I'm really glad you showed up today. Like, let's be the, best version of ourselves today. Just little things like that, I think is really important for our coaches. And it actually, I think, really, really make our lives as a coach like better and connecting with our athletes. And I think sometimes a little bit easier as well.
Yeah, 1,000% agree with you. And I think I think if I'm hearing you correctly, some of what you're saying, if we take the individualized work with a player, which I'll ask you about, and we separate that and where there are the individual work with the player and then the team work with the player that they're incorporated into. Many would refer to that as the culture of your team.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And some of the things that you just mentioned there are things that we can do, that we as coaches can do within the culture of our team
Mm-hmm.
to enable the player to be less pressured.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And then the individual work can be layered in
Mm-hmm.
for each
Absolutely.
player. Right. Okay. So let's talk about that for a second. Some of the individual things. What is one of your favorite tools or rituals or practices
Mm-hmm.
that a player could do, or maybe that a coach could encourage a player to do,
Mm-hmm.
um, to reach this place of feeling
Mm-hmm.
less pressure that you mentioned?
Yeah, I think definitely having a plan for mistakes, like a reset ritual, having, because again, right now, a lot of athletes, when a mistake happens, they carry it. And even as coaches, we do too. We carry certain mistakes into the game. And so we may be yelling and we on the sideline, or we may be, so and so, why did you do that? So I think it's really, really important coaches and players have a plan for when mistake happens, like a reset ritual. And I use a three kind of a routine: a breathe in and breathe out, having a power word, and then emotion.
Mm.
So something to go to. And then I also implement a body language part of that reset, because I think it's really, really important that, your body language is that billboard and how you feel,
I
you
love
know?
that you said
And
that, a
so,
billboard. Wow. That is,
and yeah,
yeah.
we all have been parents where we can see our kid just like crumble based on body language, right? And so part of the reset ritual is breathing in, breathing out, saying your power word, whether it being unstoppable, whether it being grit, confidence, whatever like that, to yourself in your head, a really quick motion, to kind of wipe away the mistake, and then fixing your body language. So that way your mind is matching your body and you're moving on to the next play.
Mhm. There's a lot of science to that, isn't there?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
To
Oh, yeah.
the body motion affecting the hormones and all these other things
Mm-hmm.
in the mind, right? Oh, I love that you
Absolutely.
said that. Yeah. So something we just so I can share this with you, something we do within the team that I coach. I coach a women's soccer team for a local high school, and one of the ways that we just to the culture side, right, that we try to facilitate the positive responses that you were mentioning is we will play 4v4 or some other kind of small sided game, but goals don't count.
Hmm.
They achieve points from positive responses, both
Yeah.
verbally and physically, uh, physical contact that's positive
Hmm.
with a teammate. They get bonus points for congratulating the opponent
That's
when they do
awesome.
something well. And then again, just positive body language, and their posture, and we'll
Hmm.
acknowledge those things as they're
Hmm.
playing. We'll acknowledge so that we're celebrating, right? That they are going through this process of overcoming the mistakes, right?
Yeah,
So that's
absolutely.
one tool that, if coaches are listening and thinking, well, okay, well, how do I go about, facilitating this, the
Hmm.
first steps, right?
Right.
So that we can get to the bigger steps individually that you mentioned, right? That's one way. So that's so great. You have a very, and I mentioned this earlier, you have a great scope of knowledge from which to look at the student athlete, because you
Hmm.
were a female student athlete, you struggled with
Hmm.
this yourself, you're a mom, and you're a coach. So you're like
Yeah.
trifecta,
And a,
trifecta.
and a teacher. So
And
yeah, and a
teacher,
teacher in
yeah,
the classroom. So I
yeah,
see.
yeah. So how does that give you a unique perspective to do the work that you do with student athletes?
um, Athletes, I would say this, athletes don't live in like gates or like pockets, right? Like they don't separate things. It is all blended together. So when they feel pressure at school, it does translate over onto the field, right? When
Mm,
they have academic expectations, those things are carried onto the field. Then they have just a different type of expectation. Um, when they are trying to make their parents proud, in the classroom, they are most likely trying to make their parents proud on the field, you know? So there is demands and expectations all over the place, and so the student athlete deeply cares about what people think, and how they carry these demands and over expectations. So I think it's really, really important that um, when a player may look disengaged off, like on the field, it is most likely the result of them being overwhelmed from things that might be happening off the field as well as on the field. So I think it's really, really important to understand like those things when and I think all as coaches, we've maybe our best player or one of our players looks off, like, oh my gosh, she's off or something, what is it? She's sick or what's going on? And you may ask a player, they're like, no, 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 I'm fine. Okay. When a player says I'm fine, that is usually, yeah, they're not fine. So, but it's usually about capacity, like they're overwhelmed in some sort of way. And so I think it's really, really important to understand that our athletes, when when you see that, it is usually a capacity issue, or maybe they're feeling, I mean, we just went through this with final exams, where students were dealing with final exams you know, and we still had high school practice, but I think we only had high school practice because we felt it was an outlet, right?
yes.
It wasn't about competing or having or teaching anything or going over taxes. It was just about their own playing because the kids needed an outlet because they were so overwhelmed with final exams and studying and demanding, again, expectations of, I have to do well. I have to get an A. How many times I've heard students during that week saying, I have to get an A. My parents said I'll get my phone taken away or all these things. And it's like, okay, I was like, calm down. We're going to be okay. Like just, and for me, it was those moments just trying to connect with a lot of my student athletes and just, again, holding that space. Like what's going on? It's not about fixing stuff because you're going to do the final exam regardless. Right. So,
Yeah.
but it was holding that space for them to understand. All right. Like, I gotcha. Like you're going through a lot. You're going through a lot. what is it that's going to help in this moment to get you through that? you know and I'm like, hey, just go out there and play for right now. Like, just have this hour be that moment to where you just get to worry about playing. So I think in those moments as a student athlete, sometimes when they look disengaged, it's usually about capacity. But in those moments as a coach, when you see that and there's this, your players off, connect with them, and make them realize, like, hey, like, you're emotionally safe, you're good, like, just tell me what's up. And I think even as a parent, you can do that as too. When your kid's overwhelmed, or when they're overthinking, or they have a lot going on, it is the most important time to connect with them, not fix things, not try and give, what they should be doing or anything like that. What is it? Like, connect. I would say this: connect before you correct. That's probably the biggest thing.
Yeah, that'll preach.
Yeah.
I love that you use the word capacity.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a perfect way to look at it, right? We all have that threshold of things that we can manage,
Mm-hmm.
right? Or it just spills over. Uh, what if you were to speak to the parent side of this?
Mm-hmm.
What do parents need to know, in your opinion? What do parents need to know right now about recognizing, acknowledging, and then connecting, like you said, and supporting their student athlete? What's the most important thing they could do in those moments when they notice that, hey, my kid, they're at their threshold, they've reached their capacity?
Mm-hmm.
Most
Yeah.
important thing they could do.
Yeah. Connecting is probably the most important thing to do with your athlete. And asking questions, I would say this: strive to connect with them. Hey, just tell me a little bit of what, you're going through. Hey, tell me a little bit about how you're feeling. And if you ask that question, though, it's important to not correct the feeling. And because here's what I always tell my parents is that we love our kids. We do, right? But we cannot walk in their shoes.
Mm.
They feel what they feel, and they experience what they experience, but we don't know what it's like to walk in their shoes. And so sometimes connecting with them is trying to understand what it's like to walk in their shoes, and just listen and just have, like, oh wow. And a lot of kids, I mean, I have 8-year-old, I have 10-year-old clients. They're actually more intuitive and more self-aware than we actually realize. And if we take the time to actually just listen and not correct and not try to fix, and and just ask the questions. Oh, hey, tell me more. Can you tell me why you feel that way? Oh, okay. Well, tell me a little bit about, this right here. Once you start understanding and really trying to connect with them, then you then you really understand their perspective. It is more about perspective than I think than anything. Understanding their perspective, understanding that also that what they feel, again, is a feeling, again, not a fact of how they feel in that moment or what they feel about themselves in those moments, and that's probably the biggest thing, is just connecting with them, asking questions, and reminding her also that, okay, you can feel that way. That's okay. Like, tell me how can I help you get through this, or what do you need from me in these moments? They may not know, and that's okay. But knowing that you're with them in those moments, safety, creating that emotional safety, is probably one of the biggest things. Knowing that I can feel this, but I can still feel safe, and I can still feel overwhelmed. I can still feel frustrated, but I know, like, okay, my parents got me. Like, I'm going to be okay. Where I think sometimes athletes feel like I can't feel this because I feel like I'm letting my parents down, or my parents are going to be mad because, you know, I can't feel this way. So, so I would say that's probably my one thing for parents. And because I'm also a big proponent, like I'm not my necessarily my daughter's friend, so I think there is that balance also too. I've always told my daughter, like, I'm not your friend, I'm your parent, so I think there's that balance there, but I am here to help you get through these moments where you do feel at capacity, and you do feel like overwhelmed, like, how are we going to get through this, you know
I love that you said that there's a balance, and in the coach athlete relationship, there's also balance, right?
hmm
So we are dealing
absolutely.
with youth athletes.
hmm
So what's inevitable that's going to happen, that, oh well, they don't know what they're talking about, or
hmm
they can't help me, or any kind of pushback. What would you say is maybe the most common way that athletes push back against this encouragement to have this mindset to overcome these things? Why would they push back against that?
because they want to feel safe. So a lot of times athletes don't understand the feeling of discomfort is the price admission you have to pay in order to level up. So, in other words, you're going to feel discomfort when you grow. You're going to feel it. The true recipe of how to be confident is how you trust yourself in those moments to get through it. So, in other words, like right now, a lot of athletes, when they feel discomfort or when they feel scared to do something, they want to retreat back. Like they want to go, oh, no, 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 this feels scary. I just want to go back to what I know. And that's usually being hard on themselves, overthinking, hiding, hesitating. And so they go back to these habits. Okay. But what they need to understand is when they feel this discomfort and this feeling of fear, that is also a trigger for you and a choice for you to decide that, you know what, I trust myself, I believe in myself, I can actually push through this. Because athletes don't understand what they fear is actually just a feeling. And so once they understand the feeling that I'm feeling is just a feeling, I can actually navigate through this. And so the pushback a lot of athletes have is because they don't know how to navigate through that discomfort. And so I think that's the biggest thing is like how, like, understanding that discomfort is just a feeling. It's not a fact. It is actually the price you have to pay in order to get to that next level, what I call next level you.
I love that you said that again. I'm going to get that put on a t-shirt. It's good. Discomfort is the price of admission to level up, is what you said. Wow. And if I hear you correctly, do some youth athletes and some that you've worked with, and maybe many others, do they create the identity for themselves that they are the athlete or the person that worries about this and about this and about this and about that and feels this way? You mentioned earlier that um, one of the things they struggle with is what their real identity is, and that they really cling to the emotion.
Mhm,
Would you say that sometimes that's how they identify themselves with their friends or with coaches, is, well, that's just who I am. I just worry.
mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of times when you're a competitive athlete, a lot of times athletes think their sport is who they are.
Mm.
And so I think that's sometimes the confusion. So when they're not doing well in their sport, you know, then that's where the identity gets thrown off. And I always have to remind my athletes is that your sport is something that you do. It's not who you are. So let's figure out who you are. Like, so we'll write down like, you know, what do you love about yourself again when you go through hard moments? Like, what do you love about yourself when, you're handled with a challenge? And so once we uncover, okay, that is, the sport is just something that you do. It is not who you are. And we start really, really outlining, who they are, then we start building that identity. Okay, athletes then start realizing like, I'm a person who never gives up. Well, guess what? You're a person that never gives up on the field, and you're a person that never gives up off the field. So that is who you are. I'm a person who is a good teammate. Yes, you're a good teammate, and you're supportive, and that is probably why you love being on a team sport, because and it's also one of the reasons also why they're hard on themselves, because they don't like to let their team down. So so I think it's really, really important that one, understanding your sport, it is something that you love to do, but is not something who you are. And so I think once you kind of uncover those layers of that, then you start really, really building that identity and that self-belief and all of those things. And it also relieves actually a little bit of like weight off of an athlete's shoulder, is that I can still be who I am and still actually perform well and perform, to the best of my abilities without being tied to results or being tied to a certain expected performance. I know every athlete has gone onto the field and played their best and not get the results that they've wanted, right? So like once we start looking at those things, then an athlete can be like, oh yeah, like I actually can do my best and still feel like I played my best.
Mm-hmm. I love that you mentioned that for us coaches and parents, and we say sometimes things to them, to our student athlete, that maybe doesn't help them feel safe or confident in their identity. And I think one of those, just from my experience, and maybe even my own mistakes, I'm not afraid to admit that. We say things like, "Well, just be confident."
Oh yeah.
Right. Well, to you, confidence is a skill, correct? So speak
Correct.
on that. How do we, what do you mean by confidence is a skill, and what can coaches, what can parents do to help our student athlete develop that skill?
Yeah, real confidence is a skill that can be trained. I always say it's managing three things. It's managing your thoughts, managing your emotions, and managing actions. So if we can manage our thoughts, saying, I don't, again, I don't belong, I'm not good enough, all of those things. And actually, when those things, because we're human, those things are going to pop up. As an adult, it still pops up, right? Like we still have thoughts as adults that still pop up where we doubt ourselves, right?
Just every day.
It never goes away, right? But if we can train ourselves when that comes in, I'm not good enough. No. I am good enough. I've done hard things before. I can do this. I trust myself that I'm going to be able to get through this. Let me just take a breath and there, right? It's, again, that's a skill. It's a skill, because then what follows that is an emotion. We're either going to feel scared. We're either going to feel frustrated. We're going to feel, sad. And so once we can figure out like our thoughts, we're going to feel something. And we can still feel frustrated. Okay. We can still feel all of these things, again, because we're human. That's what we're going to do. But if our actions can still be, you know what, I'm scared, but I'm still going to go do it anyway. I'm feel scared right now. I feel scared about going to make the tackle, but you know what? I'm going to go on and try to make the next tackle. I feel hesitant, or I feel like I'm overthinking some things, but you know what? I'm still going to go out there and, you know, try to do a 1v1 skill, you know. So it is really, really important that those things can be trained, because right now our athletes are most likely saying things, having thoughts of, you know, I'm not good enough, or maybe I don't belong, all of these things, but they're not combating it with things that they actually believe about themselves, because they actually believe about themselves that they are good enough. They're just not saying it loud enough
Mm.
in their head, or they believe the negative things, the
Mm.
negative thoughts.
They like
So,
to overcome the
you
problem.
know, yeah. And so I think real confidence is navigating those three things. But at the end of the day, real confidence is trusting themselves in those moments too. Trusting that the thoughts that they're telling themselves is what they truly believe about themselves. Trusting that emotions, you can feel them, but again, they're not facts, but you can navigate through them. And then most important, that the actions, okay, that whatever actions, that they trust themselves to do whatever actions they need to do to push through those hard moments.
Mm. So as a coach and as a parent of a student athlete, how can we differentiate between real confidence and maybe a I refer to it as a fake toughness, right? Or
Mm-hmm,
even appear as an egotistical
mm-hmm,
confidence. How can we, for the young coaches out there, or for parents who their youth athlete is very young, and they're really just now beginning to go on this journey of sports with
mm-hmm,
their athlete, how can they all differentiate between the two, between real confidence, what that looks like, how it manifests itself, and a camouflage of confidence when it's really, when inside, really that student athlete is telling themselves some kind of negative narrative?
mm-hmm. You can usually tell an athlete is not confident with themselves by either a body language, by either how they respond after mistakes. Um, when you're trying to coach them, you know, if they're coachable or not, you know. Um, and so I think, you know, true confidence isn't loud. Okay. And so it's usually very quiet. You know, it's not something that I think, yeah, it's not loud, I would say, you know, and it's something that it's not pretending. You usually can see it from a coaching standpoint of, again, how they carry themselves, how they interact with people, how, you know, they're encouraging to their other teammates. You know, it's how they respond when maybe there's intense moments, you know, how they respond when maybe they don't even feel like they're at their best, you know. So I think true confidence and true resilience is very quiet, is it's also flexible, I think, in moments, because we know in a game it's very emotional. It's always these up and down moments, you know. And so I think true confidence is when a player can adjust to those moments in a game, when it can be really intense one moment, and then all of a sudden, you know, like it, you know, they're able to control and their emotions through those moments. You know, I think a player that's not flexible, you know, or not being able to navigate through the highs and the lows of games, or is always looking at the results and not being able to see growth moments, even when their team has lost. You know, I think those might be the signs to look for of like, okay, like we're going to have to do some growth here on the confidence side, because they're tied so much to results or so much to their own performance that they're not looking at the whole picture, right? Because this sports journey, it's a journey. It is not, um, it doesn't end at one game.
Right.
There's always the next game, and there's always the next game. So if a player's really tied and hasn't been able to let go of certain plays or games or performances, all of those things, I think those are, probably signs of not true confidence.
Yeah. There's always another game.
Always another. That's why I always say,
Yeah.
I always say to my athletes, I'm like, okay, that was hard. Did you get through that? Yes. Okay. And did you play another game? They're like, yeah. Like, okay. Like, there's always another game to grow from and to learn from. So, why are
Your
we,
life too, right?
yeah, why are we still holding on to the things that,
Yeah.
are not helping us when we still have another game to get through,
Yeah.
So,
I'm hanging on to the things that are not helping us. Yeah. It's so true in life as well, right? So, okay, we can identify, oh, hey, my student athlete, they're they're not okay. They do need some support.
mhm.
When is the best time to do that? Before the game, during the game, after the game? That might be a question that would arise from a parent. Like when is the best time to support them? Is me encouraging from the bleachers? Is that encouraging? As a coach, is if I see a player struggling, throughout a match, when is the best time? Do I pull them off? Do I wait until halftime? Like, do I wait until after the game? When is the best time, in your opinion, uh, to offer that support?
I would say it's about preparation, right? So just like we prepare for a game, you know, you practice, right? You practice 3 days a week or whatever the case is. So I would say it's all about preparation. Okay. I always tell my athletes, you don't only practice shooting only on game day, right?
Mhm.
So because you don't get better that way. We actually, in order to get better, we have to be consistent. We have to prepare, right? So same thing with coaches, same thing with parents. Like we can't just only, help prepare them only on game day. Like it's not going to work that way, So we can start implementing little things here and there throughout the week, with coaches. How do we implement, like I said, a mistake ritual, and but actually practice it with intention at practice. How do we practice being present? In a at practice in a game. Breath work.
Mm.
All of these things, and so we can't expect our players to just only do these things on game day. We have to be intentional at practice, all of those things, So I would say from a coaching perspective, being intentional with, helping them be present, with at practice, helping them practice their reset ritual at practice. Okay. For parents, it is parents play such an important role, of I do believe confidence starts at home, and 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 that self-belief starts at home too. So if parents can, start, again, I'm a big proponent about asking questions. Hey, tell me something that you were proud of, that you did at practice. Tell me 3 things that you did well at practice. Okay, what is one thing you want to get better at? One thing, not the 10 things, because we can always write a list of 10 things that we did well, or we didn't do well, or we want to get better at. Okay. But I always want to focus, parents can always focus on growth moments. What are things that you're proud about? You can ask your child, what are 3 things that you're proud about today? Okay. On game day, what are you most excited about for today's game? Okay. Not giving correction at all. Okay. Not telling them, hey, you should do this. Hey, you should be, taking shots inside make sure you're taking shots, because then they're already, then that causes overthinking. So, and as a coach, we know as a coach, it is so hard when we're trying to coach, but then we have parents coming in with their own coaching perspective. And I love parents, I really do. But we can tell when we're telling our athletes one thing, but they're trying to fulfill parents' wishes, you know? And so coaching from the sidelines, all of those things, it is a huge distraction because our kids want to make you proud and they want to make our coaches proud. And at the end of the day, they end up not playing for themselves. They end up playing, yes, they end up playing for other people. And that's when they're not their best selves, you know? So, you know, in the car ride, just asking them before, you know, even before practice, hey, what are you excited about today? Hey, what are why, just a reminder, like, what do you love about playing this game? You know, okay, go do that. You know, just having those moments there to not, again, not correct, but just have them start thinking answers for themselves on those things. So I hope that answers kind of the question on that part.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There are some things I'm doing for my own team, and then within Play Beautiful, some things I've created that I'm hoping that coaches will get to their families, to their student athletes and their families. And one of those is a 16 week, so a season long, preseason and season long workbook, and it's how to just facilitating those kinds of conversations at home.
Mhm.
What are you excited about, and trying to align those things with what our team is trying to be about. So yeah, that's the struggle for all coaches, right? Is like we have so many buckets to fill.
Mhm.
We have so many buckets
Mhm.
to fill. How do we, and like what's the most important one? It's got to be the person.
Mhm.
Got to be the
Right.
person that we're trying to support, coach, encourage, and mentor. And so, last few questions here, and this one is really tied to that. What is your vision for coaches when it comes to supporting student athletes this way?
Mhm. Um, I think the student athlete is changing. Um, you know, and so I think in order for us coaches, we have to change to the way we coach. And I think it's very important that, I mean, again, I come from a very old school. I mean, I'm 40, but I feel like I come from a very old school, like coaching mentality of, you know, yeah, of, just yelling and, you know, I was yelled at and told I wasn't good enough and all these things, but I thrived in that, right? Like it's weird in today's coaching, you know, world, like you can't say those things, right? Like it actually will break a kid down, you know? And so I think we have to change. We have to be very intentional about how we coach. It's not about changing, you know, saying you can't do things. It's not about saying, you know, well, that's going to add more work. You know, it's not about saying that. It is about if we want to continue to be an influence and continue to mentor these student athletes, we have to change the way we approach things and perspective. So, um, so I would say that more so is that we have to just change and evolve with the way our student athlete, who it is today. You
Mm.
know, so I would, yeah, that's probably what I would say is that we have to evolve too. We have to learn more from them. You know, definitely there's more to learn from them than, you know, yes, we want to correct. Yes, we want to, you know, be able to have them be the most technically, physically, all of those things, right? And have them reach their highest level. But we actually can learn more from them. I think we all as coaches have learned more from athletes, you know, about ourselves. And so I think that's what we have to continue to do is continue to help ourselves grow as coaches to learn from them, be intentional with certain things on the mindset side, be intentional with, feelings. I'm not saying like, hey, like we have to be, like, like cater to feelings or anything like that. But I'm saying that we do have to be mindful that they have these feelings, but these feelings are what they have to experience in order to navigate through discomfort, in order to navigate through things in their journey.
Mhm. Okay, coaches, you heard we have to learn as much from our athletes as they learn from us.
Mm-hmm.
Would you say
Yeah.
that that's the future of good coaching, the future of transformational or transcending coaching as in transcending the role of just a disciplinarian tactician, technical skill director, that's the future of coaching is, would you say that being mindful of all of these things you've mentioned that our athletes are going through and to listen more than we talk and
Yeah.
to learn.
I would say the future of coaching is, I mean, we we're overall we're developing competitors and overall good humans. So I would say like the future of coaching isn't just about the sport is the vehicle. The sport is the vehicle to create competitors and create overall good humans. So if we can use the sport as how are you going to overcome this challenge? How are you going to overcome, you know, how are you, going to overcome, the feelings, the challenges, the next game, all of these things. How are you like, who do you want to become throughout of all of this? I think that's the most important. I think the future of coaching, you know, we have to look at our athletes as who they are right now and also who are they becoming. Like that is probably the biggest thing, is the sports the vehicle. Like I love soccer, but it gives me the vehicle to teach female athletes, how to be competitors, how to be overall good humans, how to be, overall a good daughter, how to be an overall good friend, and so like that is probably the biggest thing I think the future of coaching is that it is more about just the sport itself. It is more about committing to them as better humans and how we can make that, the platform of how we can, be better for them.
Mm, that's so powerful. I love that you brought in how the sport is just a vehicle, right? I
Mm-hmm.
try to refer to the weight room as the life laboratory and the field as the vehicle for, yeah. So I love that you said that. So if we establish that mindset as coaches and parents of youth athletes, if we establish that mindset for ourselves, that this is what we're going to do with it, then what would if you had one last call to action for coaches and for the parent of student athletes, what would it be? Like first step forward, this is your call to action. Go do this. What would that be for you?
Yeah, I think it would be one to realize when your kid is going through hard moments or something that's challenging, they're not broken. They're not, um, something that needs to be fixed. I think the call to action is to connect with your athlete, connect with your daughter, your son, all of those things, and really try to understand their perspective. I think you will learn a lot by just listening, and you'll learn a lot by like trying to understand their perspective. So I would say when they're going through hard moments, when they're going through challenging moments, or when, you know, they say they're just fine. I think it is really, really important to just connect. And I think you'll find out more than you'll realize, in those moments. And, again, confidence is a skill. There's going to be these seasons where they feel really good confidence. And then, they might, move to the A team, or they might move up levels, or they might move up, and so there's another season or another part of their journey where all of a sudden they may feel, their athlete, may also experience a little bit of self-doubt or overthinking or something like that. Again, that doesn't mean they're broken. That doesn't mean something's wrong with them. It means, okay, that they're trying to level up. Again, they're feeling a little bit of discomfort. And so it's helping them navigate through that. Hey, like, this is just a moment in time that you're going to experience this, but we'll help you and get through this. So I think it's really, really important that they're moments in time. They're not the end all be all moments. They're moments in time. And if you allow your athlete to feel those moments, to experience those moments, help them navigate through that and be there and present with them and connect with them in those moments, you'll actually feel that they'll rise through it. 'Cause I think a lot of athletes, when they don't feel emotionally safe, that is when, they start to really, really feel they're scared. And so I think just letting your athlete feel emotionally safe is probably, and connect with them in those moments is the best thing that I think the call to action would be, is connection.
Yeah. Silver, thank you so much. I've learned so much. I know you probably saw me jotting down notes feverishly over here. Thank you so much for this conversation and for shedding some light on the role that coaches and that parents can play in this. It's such a tough ask, to try to get inside the mind, right? And we just want to help. Sometimes we get it so wrong, right?
Mm-hmm.
I really appreciate you and the role that you have and the work that you're trying to do. And most importantly, the why. I appreciate your why.
Yeah.
Really comes through and everything you say. So thank you for the work that you do.
Yeah, no, I mean, I always say, like, coaches were a different breed. There's something about coaches and being like-minded, with just the passion and, helping, athletes and just in general, just humans, mentoring them through these moments. Cause I think we all look back and we probably can say, like, I wish I had someone to help me through this, where I felt like I was so alone. I had, no one really I could go to and relate to and all of these things. And so, my thing is, if we can be that one person that could be someone's go-to person or someone that they can relate to help navigate through those moments, I mean, that's where it's all worth it.
Yeah, 1,000%. Silver, I want to offer you final words to the student athlete. What would you say to them today to empower them?
Yeah. You're not broken. You don't need to be, there's nothing wrong with you. You have everything within you already to succeed. It is about the story you want to tell yourself. What is the story you want to be telling yourself? I think that's probably the most important thing, is if you're telling yourself the story of, you can do this, I can do this, I believe in myself, I can do hard things, then continue to tell yourself that story, and continue to tell yourself that story even when things get hard, when things, don't feel like they're going the way you think they're expected. you know, because when you tell yourself those things, that is when you learn the most about yourself. And I guarantee you'll feel most proud about yourself also, is because you stuck to who you believed about yourself, and you knew you could do it. So I would say if you're out there and maybe struggling with a little bit of self-doubt, a little bit of self, not believing in yourself, change the story, change it now, and keep telling yourself that story day in and day out.
I love it. Powerful message. If and for our listeners, you can find Silver at silveredwardscoaching.com. Wealth of resources there, but even more wealth of resources if you reach out to Silver and
Mhm.
her professional work for you and your student athlete.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yep. Instagram, all that good stuff. So
Silver, thank you again so much.
yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me. I look forward collaborating some more in the future, all of those things.
Absolutely. You've helped me be better today, I can promise you.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.